Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time here. Today I'm sharing 3 recipes that are all perfect fall comfort foods, starting with a creamy mushroom and brie soup. So you want to start by cleaning your mushrooms. The proper way to clean a mushroom is to use a damp paper towel and just wipe them. But if your mushrooms have a lot of mud on them, you can rinse them under the water. I just choose to do it like put it all in a strainer and rinse them one at a time versus letting the water continually run over them because they just absorb a lot of that liquid. So that's why you don't want to do it that way. And then you're just going to quarter the mushrooms, and if they're smaller, cut them in half. And then to a large pot, you're going to heat up a couple tablespoons of olive oil and then add your mushrooms in. I will be linking this recipe in the description box below, and in it says that you can either saute the mushrooms over the stove or you can roast them in the oven, so it's completely up to you. I chose to do it on the stove, so I was doing everything in one pot, which I love because it's just easy cleanup. So you're going to let those cook down, they're going to brown, and then you're going to start to see all of their liquid is going to release. And once that releases, you're going to continue to let it cook until it reabsorbs and evaporates some of that liquid off. And then we're going to add in some diced onion and cook that down as well. So if the background looks a little bit different in this video or this portion of the video, it's because I am cooking this at my parents' house. My husband is not the biggest fan of mushrooms, so I knew that there was no way he would eat this soup. And a lot of people in my family love mushroom soup, so I wanted them to enjoy it as well. Once your onions cook down, you're going to add in a few cloves of garlic, let that saute for a minute, and then we're going to add in some butter, let that melt, and then flour, and that's going to create the roux for our soup base. So once that cooks down for a couple of minutes, you're going to add in your broth. I'm choosing to use chicken broth, but you can also use vegetable if you'd like. I did almost forget to mention that when I add the garlic into the pan, I also add in some fresh thyme. So you're going to see that going into the pot too. And once all of that cooks down for about 10 to 15 minutes until it starts to thicken up and the liquid reduces down a bit, then we're going to finish off the soup. While the soup is simmering, I did go ahead and cut up the brie. Now I did double this recipe, which I did put in my notes below with the original recipe that I linked. So I am using 8 ounces, which is the whole block there. You just want to cut it into like 1-inch pieces, and then that's going to go directly into the soup with some heavy cream. And then you're going to let the brie melt down, and then you're going to fish out the rinds. So I found it really easy to do by using some tongs, and those just pull right out. If you notice in the background somebody running back and forth, that is our new puppy Preston. He's a few months old, and so we took him over to my parents' house so that way he can get to know his grandma and grandpa over there. So he was having a lot of fun running back and forth, so I'm sorry if that's distracting in the background of the video. So once you remove the rinds, the last step is just to puree the soup. I'm using an immersion blender, but you could also do this in your traditional blender. You just want to do it in small enough batches so that way you're being safe with it because it is hot. Now when I was doing this, I did turn the heat off of the stove. You don't have to, but honestly, it's been a long time since I've used an immersion blender, and I was not about to splash myself while the stove was on. So the last step is just to season with some salt and pepper, and then the soup is ready to go. I did saute a few sliced mushrooms on the side just to top it with. I like doing that, not just for presentation, but also so that way people know what's in the soup, and it adds a nice flavor to it as well. And then we also serve this with a nice crusty bread, which was so good dipped into it. Up next, we have Crockpot Swedish meatballs. So this recipe was amazing because you just need these few ingredients that I'm showing you here on the screen, but again, I will link the recipe down below. But you're just going to start by combining beef broth and cream of mushroom soup in your crock pot, along with an onion soup seasoning mix. And now the recipe that I used called for a couple tablespoons of A1 steak sauce, which I did not have, so instead I used Worcestershire sauce, and I think that gave it a good flavor. So you're just going to whisk everything together and then add in your meatballs. The recipe calls for frozen meatballs, which is very convenient. And then you just want to cook it on low for about 6 to 8 hours, or high I think was 3 to 4. And then once it's finished cooking, you're going to add in some sour cream and mix that in. And then once I mixed it in, I just covered it, left it for a few minutes just so that can kind of melt in, and then served it over the egg noodles. And the last dinner that we had this week was baked ziti. This recipe could not be any easier or any more full of flavor. It is definitely a family favorite. So you're going to start by slicing up some fresh mozzarella. And you do want to use the fresh here. It gives it a different flavor than using like the shredded mozzarella. So I do recommend keeping that part of the recipe how it is stated. But I bought the kind that was already sliced. So I just cut it into thirds and then those thirds into half. So that way they were in smaller pieces. And then in a separate bowl, I'm going to combine an egg yolk with some ricotta cheese and some Romano cheese. So you can also use Parmesan if you'd like. And then to that, I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. You're also going to add in a little bit of nutmeg and then some chopped fresh parsley. And again, I will have this recipe typed out in the description box for you below. So all the ingredients and the amounts that you need will be there. So you just want to whisk this to combine until everything is evenly mixed together. And then while this was being prepared, I did have a pound of ziti boiling on the stove. And so we're going to add that into the mixture next. So once you drain your pasta, you're going to add it directly into your ricotta mixture. While it's hot, don't rinse it or anything. The heat of the pasta helps to kind of start melting that ricotta and the Romano cheese, so that way it coats very evenly. And then once you have that mixed together, you're going to add in the fresh mozzarella that you cut up a little bit ago, and then a jar of your favorite marinara sauce, or you can make it homemade, whatever you prefer. But I find that in the grocery store I can find jarred marinara that has a lot of really good flavor, and it just keeps it very simple for a nice easy weeknight meal. So you just want to place this into a greased 13 by 9 inch pan, and then you're going to top it with the remaining Romano cheese or Parmesan, whatever you're choosing to use. And this will go into a preheated 425-degree oven for about 20 minutes until the top of that browns and it's all nice and bubbly hot. This dish is so good. I really cannot recommend it enough. When you bite into it and you get those like pockets of the fresh mozzarella that have melted in there, it is so good. So we just served it with a side salad and some breadsticks, but I really hope that you guys enjoy this recipe. Please let me know down in the comments below what you think of these if you give any of them a try, and don't forget to subscribe.